Hi, everyone. It's Kate Wheeler back here for another month of the KnowledgeOwl product newsletter. This month, we're recapping November, which was a little bit quieter month on the release front because we're working on some longer running projects. But let's get into what we did release. All right. So, a lot of what we've released in the last month has been in some way, shape, or form related to integrations or webhooks. So, the first of these, which is the largest, is that we've released a new and improved Zapier integration. Zapier is basically an integration connection tool. It integrates with over 6,000 different apps. And we've created an official KnowledgeOwl Zapier integration that can handle a variety of things. So we might fire a webhook when an article is created, or an updated callout is added to an article, or somebody submits an entry to your contact form, or they submit a comment on an article. These are all existing webhook events in KnowledgeOwl that you can feed in other places. We basically built a really nice Zapier app to handle that webhook integration so that you don't have to actually create webhooks on the KnowledgeOwl side. The integration will create the appropriate webhooks and scope them based on what you select during the Zapier integration setup phase. It's a really sweet integration. This builds on top of the create article Zapier integration that I mentioned a couple newsletters ago. So we've got a release note kind of detailing a variety of examples of how you might use this integration. We'd love to see people using this in the wild. If you've been kind of wondering about, like, oh, I'd like to let everybody on my team know when X happens. If X happens to be something that's one of our webhooks, you will be able to use Zapier to do that. You can kick it off to send a message in Slack or Microsoft Teams, or add a line to a spreadsheet, or open a Jira issue, or a ticket in HubSpot, or a task in Asana. Pretty much anything that Zapier has an existing integration with, you could now feed this webhook into one of those. It's fantastic. The other integration related update that we have is also webhook based, but it's on our Slack integration. So previously, if you came in to create a new webhook, you would pick the knowledge bases and the webhook events that you wanted to fire. And if you wanted to set it up to Slack, you had to jump through some extra hoops here to get it configured. We've now added this authorize Slack endpoint button that basically uses a pre-built Slack app that will handle taking those webhooks in and then posting the webhook output into a Slack channel of your choice. It's much easier to set up than our previous Slack integrations were. A couple notes on this. If you already have been using Slack with webhooks and you set that up any point before the last couple months, we strongly recommend that you update it to use this Slack endpoint. So the old version of this we used to use was Slack's incoming webhooks app, which they have deprecated, and they have a big scary warning on it that they might turn it off at some point. So we would rather you be proactive, go use the new Slack app we have, and just avoid any potential disruption. The one note I would say on this, until we get through the official Slack marketplace application process, there's a small warning on this that says it's not an official Slack app, and it can only be set up and configured by Slack workspace admins. So if you don't have workspace admin privileges, you're probably going to need to work with somebody on your team who does. But once we get 10 installations of this in the wild, we are able to submit it as an official Slack app to the marketplace for review, and then we can get it approved and it can be installed by anybody. So we are looking for a few good volunteers to be able to get it installed so that we hit that 10 workspace threshold, and then we can submit our official application and remove some of these additional hurdles. So if you're on the fence, please go install it just so we can check that requirement off and get official on the Slack app marketplace. The one other feature release we had was an add-on. We released the ability to export PDFs of inactive versions. And what we've added is the option to export a version PDF from the editor for the current active version. You can't do this for draft articles. It must be an article that is in either the official published state or the needs review published state. But both of those will have this new generate version PDF link in the upper right in the editor. You can click this to generate the version PDF. This will use the PDF template that is set up for article versions rather than the live article. So it will include all of the version metadata in the inactive version PDFs. This can be useful for auditing purposes, compliance purposes. So we're hoping that those of you who are really into having those PDF backups of things can make use of this for your current active versions. The one caveat with this is that we did add those additional fields to versions for the PDF export. So we now track who the author was who created the version, who the author was who activated it, the date it was activated, the date it was deactivated, and who the author was who deactivated it. Those fields are tracked from when we released the version PDF export October 11th. But if you've got versions that are older than that, those fields might be missing. And stick with me because I do talk about how to update that in a slightly later segment of this very same newsletter. So that's all of the big changes we rolled out within KnowledgeOwl in the last month. Other things that we've had going on, we've been greatly increasing our blog post output. So in the last month, since our last newsletter, we've published 4 posts. One was Veronica's post that was highlighting our OWL's experience at Elevate CX in Atlanta, which is a customer experience conference. It was fantastic. Another is one I wrote on knowledge base SEO tips for those of us who hate SEO. So if you have a fully or partially public knowledge base that you want to make sure is being indexed and accessible through search engines, this covers some of the metadata fields and best practices to kind of help boost your search engine optimization. I don't really like thinking about SEO, thus the title, but I do promise that most of the tips in here are pretty straightforward, and I've started incorporating a lot of them into my content workflow, and I do find that they aren't that hard to add in. We also have a guest post from Tim Jordan on how to tackle a major knowledge base revamp. This gives some tips, tricks, and an overall structure. So if you have to redo a knowledge base in the next few months, it could be a fantastic resource. And last but not least, we have our Gratitude at KnowledgeOwl post, where you can learn about the 3 main ways that we practice gratitude in an official structured capacity here at KnowledgeOwl. Aside from that, the other couple things we've had going on, I have updated our roadmap. You can find this in the KnowledgeOwl support knowledge base just by searching the word roadmap to reflect some of the features that we've released this year and update the progress that we have on various things. This can be a good, like, where is KnowledgeOwl at in relation to these things that I care about? We don't share everything about our roadmap, but we do try to share the really large, high-level features that take us a long time to build. So that's one thing you can check out. The other is I mentioned this ability to update version metadata. So one of the things I've been working on in the last month is playing around with ways to make it easier for folks to use our API to update things in KnowledgeOwl, even if you don't have a lot of API knowledge. And one of the things I've built out is a Postman collection to be able to update version metadata fields on versions that might have existed before we rolled out those new metadata fields. So if you have versions that you know who the author was who created that version or when it was activated, and it's important to you to update that for the PDF exports for some purpose, the API calls in this run and Postman collection will walk you through that. There's some additional setup instructions down here. And like the steps on how to actually run the calls to update the version metadata that you want. You would only need to do this if the version was created before October 11th of this year. And if you need to have those fields populated for the PDF exports, there's no other reason for you to have to do it. So if you don't have that use case with the PDF exports, you can skip this, basically. And last but not least, so last month we did a review drive on G2. This month we are doing a review drive on Capterra. So for every review we get now before December 1st, which is Friday, not a lot of time, we will donate $10 to the Birds of Prey Foundation, which will be matched by sponsors for Colorado Gives Day, which means that that's a $20 donation for every review that we receive by the end of the week. And Birds of Prey Foundation does a lot of work working with owls and other birds of prey. So they're very close to our heart. So if you have time, please go leave an honest review at Capterra. There's a link in the newsletter itself, as well as in the description of this video. We would love to be able to donate a bit more money to Birds of Prey Foundation, and we'd love to see your reviews. That about wraps it up for this month. A few things that are looming on the horizon. I've been mentioning this alternative to Google reCAPTCHA. We are still working on that. I think we're pretty close to being able to release it, just working out a few UI tweaks, you might say. The other change that we have is a pretty significant change that will be coming to the article editor. We're hoping before the holidays, but it might run into January. And that is changing this right-hand column on the editor. Several big changes here. The two most noticeable will be each of these sections with the headers will be expandable or collapsible, and that will be a setting that the editor remembers. So if there's stuff here that you never use, you'll be able to collapse that section and it'll take up less room. And the stuff that you most care about, you can leave open and it will stay open. There will be an expand all, collapse all option as well in case you want to quickly open to see everything or close everything. And we're also going to be moving the versions interface, which is way down here. It will get moved much higher on the page. The interface itself is going to get a bit of an overhaul. And this will be the first of a few, what we hope will be usability improvements in the editor. We know those are tough changes. We know that it moves stuff that you're really used to. We are eagerly awaiting feedback on this set of changes, but the expanding, collapsing sections and moving versions has been high on my personal list of priorities. So I'm really excited for us to get this out, to let you see it and play with it and get your feedback on it. Hopefully, the next newsletter I'll be sharing that that's coming, but it's the holiday season. People take time off. It might take us a little bit longer. And on that note, I hope you all are having a lovely end to your year. I will try to get a product newsletter out before New Year's at the end of this coming month. And in the meantime, stay safe, have fun, and we'll talk to you soon.